Hey guys, welcome to Chasing Gains Radio, episode 13. Today we've got an amazing guest in Sohee Lee, an amazing online coach and someone who's actually overcome some amazing obstacles in her life to become extremely successful. She has a history of eating disorders and being able to overcome those and become a bikini pro. While doing that, she actually ate a Snickers bar every single day for her contest prep using flexible dieting. She's worked with some amazing coaches throughout the world and has a great experience and is really making a true difference in the health and fitness industry. Helping those people overcome their eating disorders, and she's actually created a brand new community to be able to help people do that. So I'm really excited to get into the interview here today. It's got some amazing content. I do apologise up front to Sohee. I actually did call her Sophie during the interview, and that is obviously a massive mistake on my behalf. Calling someone by their wrong name does happen to me all the time. Is a massive mistake in people's skills, so I apologise for that up front for Sohee, and it's obviously not my intention to do that. So let's get into the podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave us a review on iTunes and a rating, just because that's how we can help spread the Chasing Gains movement, and that's what it's all about, being able to get that information out to the most number of people possible to be able to make the biggest difference in the fitness industry. So let's get into it, guys. Looking forward to this episode. Chasing Gains Radio, the insatiable quest for constant progression. Chasing is the act of pursuing. Gains is the result or positive outcome. Chasing Gains Radio. Here's your host, Cody McAuliffe. Hey everybody, welcome to Chasing Gains Radio, episode 12. Today we've got an amazing guest, Sohee Lee. She's an amazing online coach and worked with some of the world's top coaches as well at, say, Cressy Performance Center, worked with Lane Norton, all of these world industry leaders in the health and fitness industry, and learnt lots from those. She also has an amazing story as well, overcoming her own obstacles in regards to her training. She developed eating disorders when she was younger and was able to overcome that, and now has a great relationship with food and exercise and has moved past it. And her mission, I guess, is to be able to help other people do the same. So thanks for coming on the podcast, Sohee.
Sure, Cody. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Do you mind giving us a bit about your background, how you got into the industry, kind of everything about, say, how you developed your eating disorders and what you did to overcome that kind of stuff as well?
Sure. So I have always been interested in exercise and staying in shape and whatnot. Obviously, in my younger years, I didn't really know the right way to go about things. I just kind of thought the more you exercised and the less you ate, the better off and the skinnier and the happier you were. And when I was 14, I, as you mentioned, developed anorexia, and I was also bulimic for a long time, and it was a combination. I'm not going to go into the whys of how all that happened, because it's really complex, but
yeah.
I got to this really unhealthy cycle of running, doing cardio, primarily running, sometimes biking, and I love to go on other cardio machines for up to 3 hours a day. I was doing 300 push-ups a day, 5,000 sit-ups a day, and eating nothing, or I would, go every 3 days, then binge, then, throw it all up. Hence the bulimia.
Yeah.
And it was this really unhealthy, unhappy cycle. I lost 20 pounds. At the time, I was, I was 14 years old. I was 5'2", 100 pounds, pretty healthy for a growing adolescent. And I lost 20 pounds in about 2 months. So I was 5'2", 80 pounds, which is pretty small for someone who's already pretty petite to begin with. Yeah. And I completely lost my personality. I was so unhappy, which was the very opposite of what I was trying to accomplish. And I lost all my friends. I became very obsessive and neurotic and robotic. And so that kind of continued on and off for the next few years until I turned 18, and I happened to stumble across the Oxygen magazine at this fitness magazine that I found in a grocery store, and I saw the cover model. I don't remember who it was, but it was a female fitness model, looking lean, muscular, in shape, kind of has the figure competitor look to her. And that was the first time that I realized that up until that point, I didn't know that it was possible to look that way without having to be a professional athlete, without having to work out for 6 hours a day and make that your primary job. So that piqued my curiosity, and that's when I first started learning about proper nutrition, really, and that's how I got introduced into the world of resistance training. So that was, 8 and something years ago now, and since then I've would frequent bodybuilding.com forums. I was a heavy lurker there. I would never post. I would read everything that I could get my hands on. I followed a lot of different fitness bloggers, and I eventually ended up going to college at Stanford University in California. I was majoring in human biology, was intending on being pre-med, and that lasted about 2.5 years until I realized it wasn't medicine that I was interested in. It was more fitness, and it took me a while to realize that medicine and fitness are not the same thing. They're actually very, very different. And I was interested in things like, how can I help other people lose body fat and get healthy and do it the right way? And because I had such a terrible experience on my own doing things the wrong way for so long, I was that much more passionate about helping people not only get the bodies that they wanted, but doing it in a healthy, sustainable manner without compromising their quality of life, without losing all their friends, and while keeping their social lives. And towards the end of my college stint, I became really fascinated with the psychology behind fitness, namely the behavioral psychology, explaining why we make the decisions that we do, and how we can change behavior, and understanding habits, and as it relates to training and nutrition behaviors. So the past 4.5 years I've been in business, I guess you can say, in the fitness industry, blogging and coaching clients. I used to personal train for a while, and I've got a podcast of my own with Dr. Elaine Norton called Physique Science Radio, and I've got a few products out on the market. And so right now I work primarily with women who just want to get strong and healthy and learn how to master their nutrition craft.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So I've got a few clients that are actually kind of battling eating disorders at the moment. So they have a few questions that I'd like to ask you as well.
Yeah.
In terms of that, one question I've got here from Lauren: what were your fears related to? Were your fears related to what others thought of you, and how? If so, how did you slowly start seeing past this?
Is this when I was in the throes of my eating disorder?
Yep.
Okay, so I think the thing that didn't help with my eating disorder was that I was extremely sensitive as a kid and very much affected by other people's feedback and what they thought of me. I had to be the straight A student. I had to be the best athlete, and I'm actually full Korean, and I grew up for a time. I spent some of my middle school years and my first year of high school in Korea, and the culture back there is very different from American culture, where they place a lot of emphasis on physical looks, but in a different way than here. It's very normal back there to when you meet a friend or someone you haven't seen in a while, the first thing you say hi. Next thing, the first thing you comment on is whether or not they've gained weight, or they've lost weight, or they haven't gained weight.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing. And so I would experience a lot of anxiety when I knew that I was going to see a family friend or someone that I hadn't seen, because I knew the comments were coming. Oh, well, aren't you looking chunky? Or, oh, it was if you've lost weight, you look so much prettier. Or if you've gained weight, oh, aren't you cute? It was so, and different. It affects different people in different ways. For me, I took it really, really hard, and I took it as a sign of if you think I'm prettier for having lost 5 pounds, I'm obviously going to look even better and be more admirable if I lose 10 pounds.
Yeah.
And so, but I realized that, especially, when I turned 15 or 16, I moved to California. I attended boarding school in California, and it was the stark contrast in cultures and how they treat body image was so really alarming to me. Here we don't really talk about how people look quite so openly, at least not in person. The internet is a whole different animal. But the people here were a lot more accepting of my body size. And obviously here, it's funny, here, people think I'm petite and small. I go back home to Korea, I'm considered bigger. So just different standards. And I realized for me, I had to, honestly, I just kind of woke up one day, and this is when I was, still running for hours a day, and just becoming a slave to my exercise regimen. And I was so miserable. I would spend my days just obsessively thinking about the workout that I knew was about to come and how much I was not going to enjoy it. And I just woke up one day and I realized I don't want to live the rest of my life like this. There was a time when I was really happy and when I was really bubbly and fun to be around, and I had a lot of friends, and I lost all of that. So I started to lift weights, and I took the focus off of how I looked and more on how much I was lifting in the gym and how strong I was getting. And obviously it was by no means an overnight process. It took me several years, but I feel like I finally gotten to the point now where the comments that other people make, I realize, are more a reflection of themselves than myself. And there's always going to be someone who has something bad to say about how you look.
Yeah.
You can't please everyone. I can lose 5 pounds. Some people will love it. Some people will say you're way too skinny. I can gain 5 pounds. Some people will say, wow, we love you curvier. And, other people will say, we liked you when you were leaner. And there's no way to please everyone. So that's just a losing game. So I find a lot of joy. And I also spend a lot of time, my time around people who are supportive of me and, love me no matter what my size is. And being around positive people and practicing positive self-talk. So not talking down to myself, which I used to do a lot of back in the day.
Yeah, awesome. Totally agree. So how important do you think association is? Obviously, if you're associated with some really top performers in certain industry like Lane and Eric, how important do you think that is for, I guess, where you are today in, say, business?
Oh, 100%. Like, they say that, especially, I feel like now more than ever, it really is about, at least partly, it's about who you know. And obviously, you have to be talented. You have to be competent to some degree and have a lot to offer to the world. But I definitely have benefit a lot career-wise, professionally, from being associated with Lane, from being associated with, after having worked at Cressy Performance for a summer, and it's huge. They've, even when Lane would retweet just something I said on Twitter, I would get 100 plus followers right away. And then, they follow me for a while, and then eventually they might sign on as a coaching client. Yeah. And then they stay with me for years. Like, I have several clients who have come from Lane.
Yeah.
So I think it really is, it's absolutely matters who you know. And I like to say that part of it is, and not to say that hard work doesn't count. I think it's a combination of hard work and kind of being lucky. You have to be at the right place at the right time, plus have the hard work, the hustle, the talent, you have to have something to show for it. But, I interviewed Lane for an article 4 years ago, and then he followed me on Twitter, and then that's how he built his trust in me. So, and then I had other people like, Brett Contreras, and then we have Brad Schoenfeld. Those people have been huge for my career success. I go to them a lot for mentoring, for career advice, for, hey, can you get the word out there about this new product that I have, or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And you just did an interview with Brad, was it this week?
Yeah, I did. I think it was actually yesterday, just yesterday on to his internship class.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you've recently competed, and during that prep, you ate a Snickers bar for every day. Is that right?
Yes, I had a Snickers bar a full-size Snickers bar for 70 straight days leading up to my show, and I won my pro card.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like the
not awesome during the process because it was really hard, but I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can you go into a bit about the detail about kind of why you did that and what it was like in terms of obviously using up lots of your calories on that throughout your prep?
Sure. So the Snickers experiment started out kind of on a whim. I wanted to try. I was brainstorming a number of different experiments I could try on myself because I like reading the research, but I also like testing out different things on my own self. And I kind of thought, well, what if I just ate a Snickers bar for 4 weeks every day, and then documented the physique changes, measurement changes, take progress pictures and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so it started out as 4 weeks, and by that point, I actually for my bikini show, this was a national level OCB, which is a drug tested all natural show in Maryland last October.
Yeah.
Because I had, as a bit of background, I had stayed pretty lean in my off season.
Yeah.
I only did a 6-week diet. I only cut calories for 6 weeks leading into the show, which I know is uncommon.
Yeah.
But so what happened was that by the time the 4 weeks of the Snickers bars were up, I was ready to begin my 6-week diet.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, the 28 days of Snickers bars is fine, and to show that I didn't have any changes measurements is fine, but I think it would make an even bigger statement if I continued this for another 6 weeks through my prep. And how cool would it be if I won my pro card eating a Snickers bar every day? And obviously at the time I didn't know whether or not I would be successful in that endeavor, but I went for it anyway. And towards the end, I would probably say the last 2 weeks or so, it was really, really difficult because Snickers bars, I want to say 240 calories per bar.
Yeah.
And I had started out, I was 5'2". I started out my diet at 110 pounds. I stepped on stage at 105 pounds. So I had 6 weeks, lost 5 pounds. When you're 110 pounds and you're trying to drop body fat, you don't have a lot of calories to play with.
Yeah.
And so the Snickers bar took up a lot of my calories. I was very hungry, really low energy, and especially the last week, I was just dragging. I was miserable. I was not fun to be around.
Yeah.
People would call me on the phone. I'd be like, hello. I just couldn't talk. I had no personality.
Yeah.
It was just a matter of like just pushing through and grinding through the very end. But I did win my class, won my pro card, and so I wrote a blog post on that afterward on my site and got a lot of traction for that. And it's funny, sometimes now people kind of tag their friends on my Instagram and on my Facebook. They'll say, "This is the Snickers trainer. She won her bikini pro card eating a Snickers bar every day." And I guess it really helped. It was cool to see the effect that it had on people. You could see them. You can see the wheels kind of turning in their heads, thinking, "Holy crap! Like this girl got lean and won her pro card eating a Snickers bar." Things that maybe 10 years ago were unheard of.
Yeah.
So I would not do it again, just because it was just a difficult process. But I'm really happy about the message it sets out.
Yeah. Awesome. Totally agree. In terms of like your first prep that you ever did, can you tell us a little bit about that and how it was different to following on preps working with Lane?
Yes. So my first bikini show was in May of 2011. I was competing in the NPC Federation at the time, which back then was a little bit different. Nowadays, the bikini division, I think, is it's a lot more muscular and even leaner than they were back then. But I did a 12-week prep. I was a full-time college student at the time, so I had a full course load, and I had a part-time job, and I started out a lot heavier during for that first prep. I want to say I was 124 pounds maybe at 5'2", and I stepped on stage at 106 pounds. So what is that? 18-pound, maybe an 18-pound weight loss in 12 weeks. And I was working with a different online coach at the time, and my calories were cut pretty much every 2 weeks, regardless of how fast I was dropping weight. And I was lifting 4 days a week. I was also doing 2 metabolic conditioning workouts a week, plus 1 or 2 steady state cardio sessions. And I think by the end of towards the end of my prep, I was consuming 1,100 calories with a weekly refeed, or maybe just under 1,100, so like 1080 maybe calories a day, on top of being a full-time student and whatnot. So you can imagine how depleted I was and how stretched thin I felt. And I ended up placing second in my class. I was very skinny looking, and even back then, even though I had just prepped for 12 weeks, I didn't have much muscle. I feel like I kind of lost weight a little too quickly, quicker than I should have. So I shed more muscle, and I remember distinctly a few of the cardio sessions, and it wasn't just the prep itself, it was everything else that I had to, all the other responsibilities that I had to deal with.
Yeah.
I remember in the school university gym, cycling doing my cardio for the day, crying, crying through my cardio because I was so just not having a good time.
Yeah.
But I did finish this show. I went through with the experience, and then about 2 months later, I had put all the weight back on. So I was back up to 124.
Yeah.
Which was great. And sarcasm, obviously.
Yeah.
So, and then this prep, though, I start out at 110, so I start out a good 14 pounds lighter.
Yeah.
Ended at 105, so I was not only lighter on the scale weight, but I was leaner and more muscular this time around, which I was really happy about. I did 4 days of lifting, weightlifting, heavy lifting. Did not do any formal steady-state cardio. Did not do intervals. I did have 3 to 4 just really quick 10-minute glute conditioning circuits that I did a week. I pretty much just tacked it onto the end of my strength training sessions.
Yeah.
So I worked out no longer than 6 hours per week. Towards the end of my prep, my calories were at 1280 versus 1080 from 5 years ago. So I was able to diet down at a higher caloric intake, do less exercise, and come in looking better.
Yeah.
And I have not rebounded since, which is nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
In terms of that, coming out of your first prep, did you reverse diet out of that at all, or was it just a bit of a free-for-all? Is that why you added all the weight?
Yeah, I didn't know about reverse dieting back then. It was either, back then, it was bulk or cut. And that was all the rage. That's all I knew. And I didn't even cross my mind at the time that there was a way to carefully back your way out of a caloric deficit, or at least do it in a strategic manner such that you don't pile all the weight back on. We kind of considered it normal because that's what everyone was doing back then. You compete, then you put on 30 pounds right away. And was it fun? No, I would, and it wasn't just it wasn't that I was necessarily giving myself permission to eat. A lot of times it was, I'm actually trying to control my eating, but because my prep had been so restrictive, I was on a meal plan back then.
Yeah.
Because it was so restrictive, both in food choice and calorically, it's basic, ego depletion, willpower depletion. When you get to a point where you have no more self-control.
Yeah.
And now I know now that you never want to let yourself get to that point, because that's how you rebound. You rebound so hard, and even though I would try to keep my calories at a moderate intake after my show, most nights I would find myself inhaling 4 bowls of cereal, ice cream, grilled cheese, all these things, just because I could. And so I put the weight back on pretty rapidly, whereas this time I did utilize a flexible dieting, macro counting approach, and I was very strategic about coming out of it, and I never felt like I was at my wit's end during this prep. I never really felt like I was completely white-knuckling it. And after the show, I had a giant salad, and I had maybe a brownie or something with my friends, and I felt fine. And the next day was back to normal. There were no extremes. It was all just moderate in, moderate out.
Yeah. And that's definitely what I find. I think the biggest problem with any dieting or anything in the fitness industry is when things are taken to the absolute extreme. So even if you take clean eating to the absolute extreme, then it's not good. If you take flexible dieting to the absolute extreme and become obsessive about it, it's not good. And the same with, say, even veganism or something like that. So when it's taken to the extreme, it's not beneficial for anyone. And also, kind of people trying to force their own ideals onto other people, whether it is, say, although everyone who does effort fitting macros kind of thinks that it's it is scientifically proven to be more beneficial long term than clean eating. However, a lot of people are just stuck in their ways and they just don't want to change. Do you find that as well?
Yes, but the thing is, with as far as behavior change and changing people's minds, you can't force people to change if they're not willing to change.
Yeah.
If they're not at that place where they're ready to be open-minded and want to listen to what you have to say and actually give it a shot, there's no helping them. So for me, I try to lead by example. I try to, especially on my Instagram, on my social media platforms, show that here's what it's like to live this lifestyle. I show a lot of my training videos. I show pictures of food that I eat, how I live my life, just to show that if you follow me for long enough, you'll notice that I stay in pretty much the same shape year round.
Yeah.
I don't deprive. I don't omit food groups, etc. And over time, people may follow you quietly for a number of months, and they notice this. Well, this girl's eating burgers and pizza, and she's not really calling it a cheat meal. It's just part of her everyday life, and she's staying lean. And after a time, they kind of become curious, and that's when they start asking questions. And so I kind of let them come to me, or let them approach you on their own, as opposed to you trying to force them to change.
Yeah, totally agree. In terms of, like, you deal with a lot of people who prep for shows. What do you think the biggest obstacle is for females, both in your personal experience and with your clients for prepping for shows? What do you think the biggest obstacle is?
I think it's themselves. Well, I work primarily with women, and I find myself saying to them a lot, you got to get out of your own way. And the other thing is allow ample time to prep for the show, so you don't have to rush the process. And the more body weight you have to lose in the less time frame, the more you have to push to extremes. The more you push to extremes, the higher the likelihood of a rebound. We do not want that. So, especially if it's someone's first time competing, I would rather have them ready 4 weeks early and then coast into the show, rather than just going down to the wire and just really cranking the intensity up on diet and exercise. But my best clients, the ones who see the best results, are the ones who do exactly as I say. They may have some questions here and there, but they're not questioning the program itself, and they're not saying, well, I think we should do it this way, actually, and so I don't agree with it. They just do it. And they get back to me every 2 weeks. They check in. Their dietary adherence is 100%. They don't miss a single workout. They don't miss anything. Everything's to a T. And they're the ones who look the best, see the best results, and are consequently the happiest. And it's the people who worry about everything, and they're thinking about the future too much, and they're so outcome focused rather than just focusing on the process itself. They're the ones who are unhappy, ask a million questions. They worry about, well, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? They end up usually self-sabotaging or giving up early. Yeah,
totally agree. I find that with my clients as well. If someone is currently overcoming an eating disorder or has a history of eating disorders, do you think it's appropriate for those people to start a prep?
I mean, I don't want to give a blanket answer, but in general, the answer would probably be no. Because you're essentially, bodybuilding, you are trying to get contest lean. Getting contest lean is not natural. You have to push to an extent. It's going to hurt to an extent. You have to make sacrifices to your life. And if let's say you have anorexia, you've had anorexia for years and you're in recovery, if you then dive right into a bikini prep or a bodybuilding prep, you're essentially trading out one eating disorder for another, one obsession for another. And it's focused on your physical looks. Again, do you really want to be, when you're deep into contest prep, I would say every competitor that I know, they start obsessing over how they look. Every morning they're, inspecting their abs and how much do I weigh on the scale? What is my waist measurement? I think that's kind of not necessarily wrong, but I think for someone just coming out of an eating disorder is not the right focus, at least not right then. So instead of focusing on an aesthetic goal, I think rather than that, just trying to eat enough, reestablish a healthy relationship with your body, and learn to fall in love with exercise again, so that you don't dread it. You look forward to it. It's the highlight of your day, not the worst part of your day. And I think something like chasing strength in the gym, that's an incredibly empowering goal to work toward, because then you're not focusing on how you look anymore. You're focusing on how strong you are, and that is helps build confidence and can really change your life for the better.
Totally agree. In terms of working towards, say, strength goals, how do you help your clients who have either a history of eating disorders or do have an eating disorder? How do you help them move past the kind of concept of training more and longer is going to be more beneficial to them, and making, I guess, the most out of their time in the gym rather than just spending 3-4 hours in the gym?
Right. So at this point, with my coaching clients, they all go through an application process before they can work with me.
Yeah.
And, for multiple reasons. One, I want to make sure that we're a good match for each other. Two, I want to make sure that they have enough buy-in by the time they are ready to take me on as a coach, that they're not questioning every single thing that I do. So normally we require that they are familiar with my work, they're familiar with my methods, and if they follow me long enough on social media, they'll notice that I don't spend all my time in the gym, and the way that I write programs for my clients is very similar to how I write them, or how I work out, how I train myself. And sometimes we do have women who, especially when they start out, they're like, oh, this workout only took me 45 minutes and I feel like I'm not doing enough, or like,
Yeah.
I didn't sweat. I didn't sweat buckets. Should I go run sprints? And unfortunately, at this point, we have a really well-built community of women who, I want to say 300 plus women of past and present clients, who can then chime in with their own experience and say, hey, you know what, I felt the same way when I first started with Sohee, but you got to trust the program, stick with it. You'll see in 2 months you look better than before while doing half the exercise you were doing. So it's the community aspect that really makes the big difference, because if I tell them one thing, they'll be like, oh, okay. But then if you have 10 other women saying the exact same thing, they're much more likely to listen.
Yeah, totally agree. And it's just that it's like peer pressure, but in a positive way.
Right. So and there's a lot of, show, don't tell also.
Yeah, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of clients that you have that have to diet down relatively quickly using if it fits your macros, what kind of strategies do you use to make sure that they don't have massive rebounds post-competition?
I actually don't work with clients with strict timelines like that anymore, and I very strongly advise against it because of the high likelihood of rebound. If they come to me and they say, I have to get ready for a wedding in this many weeks and I have a ton of body weight to lose, I'll either say, you need to manage your expectations a little better, or very rarely will I actually agree to help them but I'll make it very, very clear, this is not my preferred approach.
Yeah. We
need to be very careful about having a plan for once we're done with this to get you out of this slowly, and well, not necessarily slowly, but at least in a safe manner, so that you don't end up paying for the next 2 years, because that does happen. I've known women, and actually happened with myself too, where you diet down so hard for a show or an event, and then for the next 4 years you can't get your eating back under control.
Yeah.
So my general response will be, and obviously it's not like they can really do anything at that point, is you probably should have started out prepping for this a lot earlier, or you should not have let yourself get so heavy in the off season.
Yeah, totally agree. I tend to push a lot of clients to shows later in the year.
Yes, that's a good one too, right? There's always going to be shows. You don't have to it's not worth doing that to yourself for a show. Just push it back.
Totally.
And take your time.
Yeah. In terms of resources, in terms of books on nutrition and stuff like that, is there any books that you'd kind of recommend for people who are either looking to become a trainer such as yourself, or just improving their knowledge and skills doing their comp prep?
I would say not really books so much as people to follow and blogs to read. First, I would say that make sure you're subscribed to Alan Aragon's research review. He's one of the most accomplished and well-respected fitness professionals in the industry, known for his known for nutrition, and he's got a great it's more scientific. But I think if you're serious about learning about science and whatnot, you should. It's $10 a month, worth every penny. He reviews a number of different studies and offers his 2 cents. Follow him. Follow obviously Lane Norton. And for me, I learned most of my stuff especially about coaching, from working with other coaches on my own and being an online client myself.
Yeah.
And I would study every program they gave me. I would ask questions here and there, and just pay attention to, how do they modify my macros? How do they respond when I approach them with a concern? And you learn a lot about what to do, plus a lot about what not to do as a coach. And then, I've been coaching online for 4.5 years now, and I feel like I've gotten pretty good at what I do.
Yeah.
But most of it is just putting yourself in the trenches, and make sure you're associated with other people who, going back to do the people matter. Yeah, yes, go back. Make sure you're surrounding yourself with people who are equally as curious and driven as you are. And attend conferences. I recommend the ISSN National Conference, at least, for nutrition. And obviously, I think if you're in America, NSCA is the most prestigious personal trainers organization. Go to those and just stay up to date with the latest research.
Yeah, totally agree. On Facebook, you can set to see certain people first in your feed, and I've done that with all those people, you, Lane, Brad Schofield as well.
That's a
all
good
those
idea.
people. Just because generally your feed's clogged up with a lot of BS. So to have that first, it kind of just means you can just look at that first part, and then the rest of the stuff's just a bit of fluff anyway.
Right. And Alan Aragon isn't super active on social. He has an Instagram technically, and has a Twitter technically, but he uses Facebook as his main platform. Doesn't blog too much, but he's always talking about new studies that are coming out. And he's always getting into really interesting Facebook discussions. So if you can add him as a friend, or just follow him on Facebook, you'll just learn a lot just from reading what he has to say.
Yeah, totally agree. In terms of people who are looking at becoming online coaches, like yourself, obviously following those people would be the first tip. What do you think would be the next tip?
So I know online coaching has become really popular nowadays. First thing I would say is that just because you competed once doesn't mean that you're qualified to be an online coach. You see it happening all the time, where they think they do reasonably well at a show. They worked with a coach, do one show, and then they're like, okay, now I can do. But if you don't actually have the knowledge, so being a client and following a program is very different from being a coach.
Yeah.
Being a coach, you have to know how to respond to your clients, know how to set macros to the individual, not just cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Plus, how to make modifications as needed. You have to have a good level of background knowledge to even get into it. Not only that, but especially with online coaching, you have to be willing to get back to your clients in a timely manner, which probably means checking your email multiple times a day. Probably means that you can't just take a week-long vacation and go off the grid.
Yeah.
And just do that, So there are some trade-offs that need to be made. Some people I know just would despise that kind of obligation.
Yeah.
And that would be the main thing. That's my main beef with online coaches is people who have no business being an online coach, just doing it because they think it's a quick way to make money.
Yeah, totally.
And they end up hurting people.
Yeah.
Harming people's health.
Yeah, totally agree, and it definitely happens. And I think that Instagram is kind of the biggest place it's happening at the moment, just because all of those people do their first show, they do well, and then they think that everyone's going to react exactly the same way to the methods that they use, whether it be clean eating, if it's your macros, whatever it is, and they just don't understand that each person is completely different and needs a completely different approach based on how their body reacts to certain changes as well. So I totally agree.
Right.
In terms of like the competing or fitness industry, where do you kind of see it going in the next couple of years? Do you think there's going to be even more of a rise in online coaches, or what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of bro science out there. I don't see it slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, I also do see a rise in the more scientific-minded people people who do care about research and care about evidence-based science, and looks like they're also gaining popularity. So my hope is that over the next several years, those voices will be even more prominent than they are now. They'll gain even more of a following. I hope to one day join their ranks, obviously. And I think that there's not much we can do to drown out the I don't want to, you can call them bro scientists or just the bros who don't understand or don't care about science, and they just kind of do things because that's the way it's always been, and they go the old school bodybuilding way. But I think that the bigger that we get, the more attention we'll attract, and so hopefully maybe the tide will eventually start to change. But I do see it taking a while. I think it's going to be very slow going, but you do have people like Lane, and you look at him, he's got a huge following and he's popular for a reason. He's got his PhD in nutrition, he's a elite level powerlifter, pro natural bodybuilder, and he's got the right personality, and he's very opinionated. Which people love to follow that, but he cares about science, and he tells it like it is, and he gives accurate information. So people like him are doing good things for the world, and over time, I hope that only more people start to emerge and start to put out quality content, accurate content.
Yeah, totally agree. In terms of training for females, do you think it's important to structure training programs specific to females compared to how males train? So like talking either like a bro split versus DUP
Sure.
in terms of training for females?
Right, yeah, I used to think I used to say no, they can train the exact same, and technically they can. It's not like a female is going to get injured doing a program that her boyfriend is doing, but there are some aspects of training. For example, guys might like big traps. Most women that I know, they're not going to be like, Sohee, I just want huge traps. That's all I care about. They're more like, Sohee, I just want a tiny waist. I want a big booty. I want to have curves. I want to feel feminine, but still be strong. And that usually means they want a lot of glute work, maybe some, but not a ton of quad work. They don't want like giant bulging quads. They don't want their thighs rubbing together necessarily, maybe. And so, whereas guys might they might do more curls, they might do more shrugs, they might do more leg extensions and whatnot. So, with my female clients, I do end up I'm prescribing a lot of full body or upper lower training splits. I have not prescribed a body part split in a really long time. Probably won't do it at all unless someone specifically requests it. Because I think that women can see better results from full body splits and training their glutes multiple days a week rather than just 1 or 2 days a week.
How do you find talking to females who've been training for a while and have been doing more of the separating the body parts, getting them to train legs multiple times per week? Because I find it's definitely something you have to sell to start off with, just because they're like, I'll just get too sore, when they don't really kind of take into account that although the training volume for the week will be up, it'll be much lower on specific days compared to what it was before, so they just get too sore.
Sure. Well, actually, I feel like I'm pretty fortunate in that I don't get too much pushback on my training programs that I write for clients. And I think the reason is that I'm so vocal about my own training on my own social media platforms that they're already familiar with my methods before they even come to me. So they know that I train, probably do a hip thrust variation 4 days, every time I train, 4 days a week. I'm doing some hip thrust variation. And when I do lower body work, for example, today I did dumbbell walking lunges. I only do 2 working sets. I don't do crazy volume. Tomorrow I might be a little bit sore, but it's not ever. I don't want to ever get to the point where it's crippling. And I'm having trouble sitting down on the toilet. I don't think that's pleasant. I think that negatively affects your quality of life. And as we now know, DOMS, or delayed onset muscle soreness, is highly overrated. So has little to no correlation with the effectiveness of a workout. So if I can get a client to go through a workout session and still feel really good at the end and feel great the next day, then I've done my job and still get training results. That's the goal for me. I'm not trying to obliterate clients. I'm not trying to get them to spend 2 hours in the gym. If I do the minimum effective dose, get you in and out of there in 40 to 60 minutes and work out maybe 4 days a week and just leave it at that.
Yeah, totally agree. And I find that's kind of what most of the experienced trainers kind of do in the fitness industry. It's just that when people first come into the fitness industry, they kind of want to hang their hat on being that trainer that just punishes everyone and people can't walk afterwards. However, when you become more experienced in the fitness industry, you understand that it's more about having that high training morale, so people actually enjoy training and they're able to do it multiple times per week rather than not being able to walk.
Right, and
a couple of days
it's so easy for any trainer to make. If your goal is to run a client into the ground, any idiotic trainer, no, you don't have to have any experience. Hey, do 1,000 burpees. Oh, now you're tired. I've done my job. But is it actually getting them to their goal? Is you should focus on things like, am I actually making progress from week to week?
Yeah.
Not, do I feel sufficiently fatigued at the end of the session? If your goal is to be fatigued, then yes, do that. But most people's goals are to get stronger and or to look better.
Yeah, totally agree. And it's just
And
tailoring.
they're two different things. Yeah.
Yeah, tailoring the approach to the outcomes or the gains that they're actually looking for. In terms
Sure.
of your training at the moment, what kind of gains or outcomes are you working towards in your off season? Are you doing any powerlifting or?
Yep. So right now I am a few weeks out from my second powerlifting meet. I am training 4 days a week. I've got a squat focus day, bench focus day, deadlift focus day, and then an accessory day.
Yep.
And I probably do 5 or 6 exercises per session, so I don't do very much. But every week I'm trying to get stronger in the big lifts, either by reps or by absolute weight, and I'm already stronger than last year's numbers, so I'm pretty happy about that. And volume is relatively low, just because we found that I tend to respond a little bit better that way.
Yeah.
I feel so. My focus right now is primarily strength gain, not so much hypertrophy gain. But once I'm done with the powerlifting meet, which is April 2nd, here in Arizona, once that's done, USAPL Federation, I do plan on adding in more hypertrophy work into there just to switch things up. And I have no plans of dieting this year at all.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in. I'm staying relatively lean. I'm enjoying my quality of life. I like being able to go out to eat twice a week and not having to obsess over or worry about the exact macronutrient breakdown of what I'm eating.
Yeah.
I like not having to fuss with my nutrition app, right? At least not right now. And I do have my Bikini Pro card, but not this year. No, won't be stepping on stage this year. Maybe next year, maybe the year after that. I don't know. Cool. But I'm not in any rush. I'd rather take the time to enjoy my life and build a little bit more muscle before I diet down again.
Yeah, I totally agree. How important do you think it is for people to get to that point where they do that mindful eating in the off season and not be obsessive about the food intake?
I think it should be the ultimate goal for everyone.
Yeah.
It's the sustainable way. I don't think it's realistic to count macros every single day for the rest of your life. I do think that knowing how to track macros and adhere to a prescribed set of macronutrient numbers is a skill that everyone should know.
Yeah.
But you should not have to do it year round. So I do think that ultimately the goal would be to spend at least the large majority of the year not actively counting macros, but still being mindful of what you're eating. But otherwise, just practicing simple portion control and moderation.
Yeah, totally agree. So we just talked about your training kind of goals and outcomes that you're working towards. What gains or outcomes you're working towards in your business? I understand that you're talking a bit about community and stuff previously. Mm-hmm. What are you doing in terms of building that up in the future?
Yep. So I'm actually going back to school this fall to get my master's in psychology, which means that I have 6 weeks I have 6 months to tweak my business. But I do plan on continuing to keep up everything that I'm doing with my brand. Maybe just take a slight step back, but I do plan on continuing to grow my community. We actually just launched my custom built forum. My eat.lift.thrive community forum just went live a few days ago, and currently it's only open to current paying clients.
Yeah.
But we do plan on opening it up for membership to the public very soon. And so that is a really cool thing that I've been trying to do since last summer. So it's a long-term project coming to fruition now. I do, and then in April, late April of this year, I'll be hosting my first ever Eat, Lift, Thrive Women's Camp, which is going to be a 3-day event. We have people flying in from all over, and we're going to have lectures, we're going to have practicals, we're going to have time for dinners and wine and all the fun shenanigans. And I hope to make that an annual event. But I think just spreading the Eat, Lift, Thrive brand and the message of you can eat well and still look good, lift heavy, be strong, have a positive body image, and live your fullest, happiest life. That's all. I'm all about teaching other women how to live that life, and I have a few products in the works right now, and I'm hoping to, my growth over the past 4.5 years has been pretty good. I'm happy with the people that I've been able to reach, but I only hope to continue increasing that even more. And I don't plan on leaving the industry anytime soon. I think that that the word needs to get out there. So I'll be coaching clients. Obviously, I'll continue doing that, but mostly I want to continue putting out quality content to positively affect other people's lives.
Yeah, totally agree. And I really think that you're really doing that and making a positive impact on the fitness industry already. So thanks for doing that.
Thank you. Trying.
What is the best way for people to be able to get in contact with you?
Yep. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. My handle for everything is Sohee Fit. That's SOHEEFIT. I also have my blog, SoheeFit.com. If you need to get in touch with me, you can fill out the contact form on my blog, and we get back usually 1 business day turnaround. So we're, by we, I mean myself and my 2 assistants. We're all pretty active. We're really active on social media, and we're quick to respond to emails. So I'm usually really good on Instagram. If you ask me a question on Instagram, I'll get back to you relatively quickly. And so that's the route that I would recommend. But I'm also on Facebook and other platforms.
Yeah, awesome. All right, thanks for taking the time out of your day. I really appreciate you spending the time to be able to talk on Chasing Gains Radio, and it's really always awesome to have people like you who are actually really making a true difference in the health and fitness industry, making that positive impact, especially with that kind of niche that you kind of have as well of people who have overcome eating disorders.
Sure, it's really, I always love being on podcasts because I think people always ask, every now and then I get a really good question that I never maybe would not have thought of, and I just hope that the truth, the science truth, keeps spreading. That's really all I care about.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for doing it, and thanks for
all
coming
right,
on the show.
You.
Hey guys, there we go. Great episode again from Sohee Lee. I really appreciate her taking the time out of her day to be able to come and do that. And really looking forward to seeing what she can actually do in the fitness industry going forward as well, because she's got some great ambitions and is looking at making a real difference in the fitness industry. So again, if you can, just leave a review on iTunes to be able to make sure that the Chasing Gains podcast actually gets spread around even more, to be able to help even more people improve their health and fitness and get that information out there to fitness professionals and anyone looking at improving their health and fitness. Thanks again, guys. See you next episode.